Hey, it is episode 24.
Dun dun
Or
dun 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 dun. Do you do the Jaws music in Vegas, Kristen? Feel like it might be too dry.
I think you could do jazz music anywhere,
There
right?
you go.
We've
Dun
actually
dun
had
dun dun
it's
dun
been
dun dun
freaking
dun.
humid lately. We got your crazy California humidity creeping this way. I don't like
It
it.
is not mine. That belongs to southeastern Arizona, where I used to live, and we had these amazing monsoons right after the 4th of July. And every now and again, it creeps into Southern California, which I did not know when I was living there, but I've learned since moving here. And yeah, headed your way as well. But
So no
hasn't
thanks.
necessarily hit Main Street, and it hasn't necessarily hit the rivers of America, both of which are our topics for this week.
They were, and God, I love when you make me feel less dumb. And I felt that way after reading your article because I had no idea that sailing ship Columbia actually set sail. Talk to us about it.
Right. So, I first went to Disneyland in 1988. I knew about the Mark Twain from being a kid growing up in Florida and going to Walt Disney World. So, of course, I recognized it when I went to Disneyland. And there was a second ship on the river. And I'm like, oh, that's cute. And it's sitting there docked. And I didn't go back for 3 years. And there it was again, docked.
Doc.
And I don't remember if it was that trip or the trip the following summer, but we saw Phantasmic the very first summer. So it was either 91 or 92. I should know this. And we saw it one evening. And lo and behold, that ship that I thought sat docked the entire time in Frontierland on the rivers of America, the sailing ship Columbia, hums around the river bit. Now, you have to see the show at Disneyland to appreciate this moment. It doesn't happen at Fantasless at Hollywood Studios at Walt Disney World. It's the same show, but not. It's a whole
Mm,
nother podcast and conversation.
right.
But in the spirit of America 250, which is what I have been focusing on for July, I told this great story of how Walt was looking at the river one day and, he saw the Mark Twain moving around and he saw the canoes and he saw the keel boats. He saw all of this activity and all of this traffic. And he was like, now that's a busy river. And at first, the other cast members and Imagineers and executives that were around him, they thought this was like not good, that they were afraid that they were gonna have to, like, do something to fix this. No, Walt loved it, and then he immediately replied with, "You know what we need? We need a bigger boat." It would be like sitting on the freeway, right? Wondering about why there's all this traffic and thinking, "You know what we need is an 18-wheeler."
Another Ferrari. That'll do.
And so he gets Admiral Joe Fowler, who he had hired from the San Francisco Naval Yard,
Mm,
and was instrumental in getting Disneyland built and open in 1955. He gets Fowler to figure out, okay, well, what's the next big boat going to be? And Fowler recommends that they build a replica, not a 5/8 scale replica, which is what the Mark Twain is, but a full size replica of the
wow.
sailing ship Columbia, which was the first U.S. ship to circumvent the globe. And so I just love that story in the spirit of American history and patriotism and this idea that you can't stay sitting at the dock, right? And it's okay to have a busy river. And I can remember that there's been times in my life where I've been like really, really busy, but I was also super, super productive and unbelievably happy.
Mm,
Right? And so if you want to, accomplish more, you have to move more. You can't stay sitting at the dock. And
right.
so, I love Walt looking out at the river and going, "Now that's a busy river, and we need a bigger boat."
Yeah.
And, I can't help but wonder how many of us need bigger boats and busier rivers in our lives right now. We think it's the opposite, right?
Right.
We sit all week at work and then we think that we need to rest by sitting all weekend, and we just get worse and worse and worse as a result.
Yep.
And I know I'm trying to move more. I know you've been really good at that, especially the past year.
Yeah.
So Yeah, let's get out of our comfort zone. Let's sail away from the dock. And even if the river is already busy, let's get busier.
Yeah, let's get another boat. I love that. To take it back to Walt, it's just another example of how he looked at the world so differently. Most of us would look out at that and say, oh, maybe it's too congested. Maybe we need to stagger when we release the canoes or when we release some of these other, vessels. But he just looked at it as another opportunity.
Well,
And
we're
man,
striving for balance, right? Which I think is a complete illusion
mm,
and not the way to go at all. Walt didn't look at the river and go, "Oh, how can we balance this traffic?" He's like, "No more. That would
hey,
be great. That would be
yeah.
awesome."
And that's funny because I'm all about balance. Even ask my husband when we try to plant new things in the backyard or in the garden, I always say, well, it's got to be symmetrical. Everything just has to feel, even my office. And you know what?
Boring.
I know I'm working on it. I'm working on it. One step at a time,
There you
one
go.
little step at a time.
And of
Yeah.
course,
No,
you wrote about one of my favorite features on Main Street. I talk about this in my Listen to the Park virtual workshop when I'm out on the road speaking and teaching. And when I give tours of Disneyland, try to make sure that we always stop and see exactly what you wrote about. So remind us, what was your bright idea?
absolutely. I had a little bright idea. Well, it was actually Walt's bright idea.
True.
So on Main Street, and what I love about this little tidbit is that it looks different, whether it's the daytime or at nighttime. So it's the same story, but it just hits different. So down on you'll know this, is it called the Coca Cola? What is the name of the
Coke
corner?
Corner.
Coke Corner. Didn't it used to be called Casey's Corner?
Well, it's Casey's Corner at the end of Main Street at Walt Disney World.
That's why they
And so
call you guys.
it's very baseball themed at Casey's Corner at Magic Kingdom, Walt Disney World, Florida, but it is Coke Corner at the end of Main Street at Disneyland. And what's really cool about Coke Corner, a lot of people don't realize this. So Main Street's all about Marceline, right? Well, Walt remembers moving to Marceline at the age of 4 and there
Mm.
being this gorgeous billboard with this stunning artwork promoting Coca-Cola just as you came into town.
Wow.
And it's one of the first pieces of art that ever captured that young boy's attention, and he never forgot it. And
Oh
so
my
when
God.
he is building Main Street in 1955 and replicating it off of his memories of Marceline, he is trying to go back vis-a-vis Coke Corner and tap into the emotion that he felt when he saw that billboard way back in like 1905, 1906.
Okay, now I just love this story and I love Coke Corner even more. But what's fascinating about Coke Corner is when you think of kind of the perfectionist that Walt was, you would assume that they kind of get it right the first time before they start actually putting the brick and mortar together. They've already
Yeah, I don't
worked
know
out
how
the
this happened.
yeah. It's one of those things that I was like, I would love to know who was on the clock that day. So when they go to install the light bulbs, right, the old fashioned marquee light bulbs, they have them scheduled now. Are the light bulbs themselves different colors, right? That's why he was able to paint it. Because I want to say it wasn't that the light itself changed;
Oh,
it
no, no,
was
it's the bulb.
the different colored bulbs. So they have the alternating red and white, right? Very on brand for Main Street, but they didn't have an even amount. So that meant there was either going to be two white back to back or two red back to back, and
Oh,
that you just can't have that on Main Street.
no, no,
So
no, 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 no.
So instead of scrapping it and going a different route that might be less aesthetically pleasing, he stayed true to the design and he said, but I have a bright idea. Those were my words, not Walt's for the record. And so instead of it being incorrect, he said, well, why don't we just paint half of the white light bulb red? And so when the lights are on, no one's the wiser. And it is the cutest, most subtle nod to who he was as a visionary, as a leader, but somebody that also cared so much about the park because he had an expectation of what it should be to deliver it to his guests that he paid attention to those minute details. And I was just so inspired by that. So every time we go to the park, I always make sure to stop and see it during the daylight and then make a visit on our way out as we're leaving the park for the night. To just have a little quiet moment under those flashing light bulbs is a subtle reminder that even when we can't necessarily change our surroundings, right, or the building of which we find ourselves, we can make adjustments. Sometimes that's our perspective. Sometimes it's just coming up with a creative way to working around the problem. And it's a great life lesson that we can take away from.
Yeah, I love that. Yes, Walt was a creative genius and an amazing visionary. He obviously had some OCD issues, right?
But
And at the same time, he is paying attention to the details and coming up with a solution. And the solution was ingenious. Now, folks ask me all the time, they're like, well, how is Walt's light bulb still burning 71 years later? Well, it's not the same light bulb. Disney just keeps painting it half red and half white in honor of Walt and his legacy and his memory and his attention to detail. And I know there's a lot of folks, and I get it, who want to pause under the apartment or pause at the firehouse, right? And
Mhm.
pay homage to the lamp in Walt's window and apartment above.
Right.
And I get it. But for me, I feel closer to the light bulb for some reason.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah. And the thing that really captured me about your story, which is so you,
Mm.
is you dressed up, of course, because you're Kristen, and were just as red and white as Walt's light bulb ever was, or just as much as the Coca-Cola brand ever is, right?
Right.
I would never think of that in a million years. And so when you first sent me the article, I saw the picture and I'm like, where in the world is she going now?
Oh my
And
gosh.
it was great.
I love it. In fact, I think when we were planning our trip to come out to do Disney with you, that was the first thing I asked was like, what's the ensemble gonna look like? What are the costume
Oh,
choices?
no,
Is it
no, no, no. It's deeper than that. Episode 1, when we were recording our first podcast, you asked me, "What are you wearing?" And I'm
yeah,
like, "Why does it matter? Who the freak cares? It's a
but for
podcast."
everybody cares. Everybody cares. They love it. And now they're here for it. That's so funny. I think that's when you knew. There had to have been like a little Jiminy Cricket moment that's
Yeah.
like, you better buckle up and pull on that yellow tab because you're in for a wild ride.
You know, my mom's been gone since 2007, and
Mm,
every now and again, you get this sense that, she's having fun with you and poking back from the other side. Um, you are absolutely a poke back. No doubt about it.
I am serving the mission well then.
Because my mother would have done that with a light bulb in our house, and she would have dressed exactly the way that you dressed or more. I don't wanna say worse, or
Yeah.
more.
Yeah, maybe took it to the next level, plussed it, if you will. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hey, before
Absolutely.
we
So,
go,
great job.
we have one more class together of the
Yes.
class that you've been teaching us. Talk to us about that, and then let us know again where we can find information on that course, and then maybe a nod to the website that's coming out soon.
Oh, man, we have so much in the works. So, the wisdomofwalt.com is getting a refresh, which doesn't even sound fair because I love the new look and the new website. So, it's gonna launch as early as this week, fingers crossed. And there you're going to be able to get the podcast. You're going to be able to get merchandise, which I know you're excited about, Kristen. And you're going to have access to the History of Disneyland course. The asynchronous version is always available to anyone, anywhere, online. And then every summer, we do the live version where we have calls once a week. And we are coming up, unfortunately, on our final call for the summer semester of 2026. And it's been a great semester, a great summer, great class. And, it's all about the community. And I love the community that has built around the material this summer. And I know because you were on the call this past week, we're already talking about extending it a week, not because I have more history, Disney lessons to teach, but because people want more community and more social hour.
Yeah, it's been beautiful. In fact, I just got off the phone today with one of our fellow students that I didn't know existed a few weeks ago. And we were talking about that very thing to make sure we have another opportunity to come together. So, what a gift it is, whether you want to just reach out and connect with other people that are fans of Walt Disney and the history of Disneyland, or if you just want to go deeper into use the factual side of it. You're going to learn something, you're going to meet someone, and it's been a great ride to be a part of. So,
And we had 2 people sign up for next summer just this past week.
fantastic. Hey, pretty cool. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us again for another magical week, and we will see you real soon.